What is up? I'm Marcel and welcome back to the Modern Filmmaker. So for the last couple weeks, I've been working around the clock at the newest Modern Titles V1.5 update. And while I am still working on some other new preset packs, I just wanted to keep this one optimized and updated. Not only to give you guys a smoother experience, but also to add some capabilities and make sure that you guys have the fastest workflow. So let's go ahead and jump in and see what's new. So if you're new to the Modern Titles preset pack, then you will need to install. And when you download the files from the website, they will come in this little zip file here, Modern Titles 1.5. And if you open this, you'll see all the files that you need for the presets. And then you will see an install folder here, which will give you the installed directories depending if you're on Windows or Mac OS. And if you're on Windows, then this is the directory they need to go in. And if you're on Mac OS, then this is the directory. And you simply just need to select all of the .settings file in the zip folder and copy them to that directory. Then next time you open Davinci Resolve, they will already be there waiting for you in the title section in the edit tab. Now inside any existing or new project, in the edit tab under the effects library, all you have to do is come down here to titles and you'll see the list in the M's under Modern Titles V1.5. And here all of them are. Now, here's a little disclaimer. There are a few things in the back end, actually several things in the back end that are changed about these files. So if you have an existing file or project you're working on where you already have the old version of these titles brought in and they're already customized and laid out, I am not positive that if you overwrite those files with these, I'm actually quite positive that they will not re-show up in your old project. So I suggest kind of finishing your old project out with the files that you had and then moving forward with any new projects with these files. I just don't know how that's going to react and I don't want to send you guys in any wrong directions. But with that said, moving forward, you have all of these here and it's simple. All you have to do is drag them in to any timeline and voila, we have our titles here. And if I just give us some more room by taking this down to one preview window, a little more space here, we can see we have our preset here that animates in and animates out. And if we click on the inspector, then we have all the properties. Now, the first thing that you may notice have changed if you had the old version is the organization. These are all now organized and labeled. And I've also added at the very beginning, you'll see the global positioning. So that's just, the global positioning. You can move this left or right or up or down. Let me just move this back to the beginning because they've all kind of shifted off the screen now. You have the global size, so you can scale it from here. Now, I personally suggest doing all your scaling, positioning, or rotating of the entire frame over here in the window tab. It's just a little smoother and works really well, and it has reset buttons if you need to go back to normal. It just makes things a little simpler, and you have cropping and dynamic zoom here. But those are there in case you need them. I just thought I would add those there just to make it simple. And then you have the text 1, text 2, which always goes from top to bottom. And then from there you would have our shape, which we only have one shape, and that's the block here. And for this one in particular, this shape is actually, this first text is transparent. If I were to move this up and pull some kind of media under it, you would see that this is transparent. Now in the old version there was a lot of wonkiness when you tried to change the color of the transparent section or even tried to change the color of the background depending on how your configuration was handling this preset. But now I am pleased to tell you that the transparent text does not change, so there's not even an option for that. It always stays transparent. And now for the background color, you can change that to any color you want and it'll simply change to that color. It used to kind of affect the text sometimes. It was weird in some situations. If it wasn't loaded, if it wasn't cached, it would do weird things. But now, no matter whether it's cached or not cached, it will give you a very smooth response and it'll give you an accurate representation of what it'll look like when fully rendered, cached, and exported. So that is very cool. And if I go down this list a little further, you'll see that I've got the effects on the very bottom. So the organization of every single one of these titles is text on top, then design elements, and the colors you can change between them, and then you have the effects at the very bottom. And before, the effects were not labeled. In the 1.2 update, I added the light rays and the drop shadows, but unfortunately, because they weren't labeled, they were kind of hard to find. But here they are at the bottom of every one, labeled light rays. So if you want to add some light rays, you can simply do that there, and then you have a really kind of dreamy, kind of cinematic thing going on. And I love the light rays. The light rays in DaVinci, there's just something really smooth about them. Mathematically, the way they're set up is just perfect. I can't really put my finger on it, but if I just kind of scrub through this, you can see how the light kind of starts coming out as the white enters the frame. If I crank this up a little more, you guys can really see it. Light ray blend. Yeah, as I scrub through, you can really see that light kind of peeking through. And then, now that's way too intense, but you guys get what I'm saying here. Very cool, very smooth. I love it. Let's move forward to another one, and I'll show you guys some more features that are also added. Slide tech here. Again, this slide tech motion has a transparent text in it as well. So this text cannot be changed. The color cannot be changed of the actual text, but you can see down here under text 3, like I said, they go top to bottom. So this would be 1, 2, and then 3. You can see that right under that is text 3 shape color. So if you see a text inside of a design element, then right under in the inspector, I've organized it to where right under that text you will see that shape color properties. So now we can go here and change this to whatever color we please, and very nice. And also you can see that I have keyframed positions. Now under some of these the keyframe is not positioned. So under text 1 where it says innovate, which we can change this to something brighter like this, where it says innovate here, the keyframe of the text, it doesn't move at all. It just writes on the screen in the animation. Boom. So it doesn't slide on, it just writes onto the screen. So in this in particular one, you can see that the write on is animated, but the text one is not. So it just says text position, text 1 position, and then if you get down to the text 2, you can see it says keyframed position, because this one is keyframed to slide in. Convenient slides in from the right. So it's got keyframes there. So if you need to change the position of this for some reason, let's say you're using some funky font with this in particular animation that didn't quite mesh well with where this actually is. If you click through these arrows here, you can see it at point 1, it's animated off the screen. If you move forward to the next point, this is where it's animated on, and it'll stay still. So this way I could change this if I just wanted it a smidge over to the left, let's say. I could move it over a little bit and go back to that keyframe, and now I can copy this position, go over to the next keyframe because it still should be staying still in between these keyframes, and put that position there. Now when I scrub through, it'll animate on the screen to our new kind of modified positioning, and then animate off the screen just as anticipated. So very cool. We have all these new features, as well as drop shadows are also labeled. And for any of you that didn't know how to activate the drop shadow, now if you see down here it says drop shadow offset, drop shadow softness, and then down here you have your color properties, and the alpha is turned off by default. That way, you know, if you don't need drop shadow, then you don't have to go down here and turn it off, because most of the time you probably won't need it. But if you do need it, all you have to do is turn the alpha up, and you can change the color to whatever you want and give it a little glow if need be, but I'm just going to keep it kind of classic shadow. And then you can kind of mess with the softness here to make this not so harsh, and move this around with the offset. And then you can take the alpha back down to make it kind of blend more, and now it's a much smoother, kind of cool. It kind of pops more off this background that is also kind of bright. So that's very, very cool. That was also added in the 1.2 update, but that was before things were organized, and I think a lot of people didn't even really know that they were in there, because it was so easy to scroll past before they were all labeled and organized so well. It's just really helpful when it comes to speed. You know, with the old ones, I even, some of them I wouldn't have memorized where things were. And you'd have one text up here, and then the next text down here, and then a shape in between. And it was all kind of all over the place. But now it's all right here and organized. And it's just really simple and easy to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this one for now, and I'll bring in another one. Let's see, Technica Square Tech. This one's kind of complicated, but it is sweet. This one has the squares that pull in, and Square Tech comes in. And again, you know, these text no longer can be, the color cannot be changed. Like I said before, you could change the color, but it would do the opposite color, and then when you tried to change the background, those colors would kind of play funky with each other, and it's just a lot easier on the back end when it comes to the flow of the Mac or the nodes to get these to just be transparent and not get any other further glitching, because now you can change, of course, the color of the big square and the color of the small square as well. Boom. And also before, these two sections were broken up. So there was a different section for each single square, which I didn't really know if that was completely necessary. So I went ahead and just kind of bunched them into, this is the color for all the big squares, this is the color for all the small squares. But what you can do is go in here to the gradients and then affect kind of how it goes across. So you can make multiple points here, point here, let's say point here, and change each of these colors to something different. And you can see it's kind of giving us that crazy gradient look. But I think I added one I didn't need to add. Yep. So I don't know. This wasn't necessarily a planned thing I wanted to show you guys, but you know, if you do want to change the colors of the squares, that can still be done in this screen. It's just, there's not so much in the inspector tab to where it seems like, oh my god, there's so many options. Which square is which? What's going on? So for now, I'm gonna change this back from a gradient to a solid color and show you guys another thing that's pretty cool with this in particular animation. One thing I like to do is go over the video, because there's so many options in here. You can keyframe the position, you can do like a little zoom with it, you know, keyframe that kind of position in. You can rotate it if need be, if that just kind of tickles your fancy. If that's what you need in your animation, it still works and it actually looks kind of cool. I'm not mad at that. So these are all options, but one thing that I think a lot of people don't think about is the composite modes. And if I come over to the drop shadow, and let's say I add I pump up this alpha so we can see the drop shadow a little bit. I'll come a little down on the softness so we can really see where it's coming from. And even that, I mean, even that's pretty cool. I mean, in my personal opinion, even that is kind of legit. But moving forward, if we go to the video tab and the composite mode, we can come down here to something like darken and get this really cool look that's like, what? What is this? Let's bump up the zoom on that. And let's see where I want to play back. All right, we're off. And look at that. That's just a really smooth, subtle, modern kind of thing that's like, I've never really seen something like that before, but I would like to. And so that's a really cool thing you can do with it. Or you can use something like overlay, and that also gives you a really cool kind of look. And to make that square text pop out a little more, I can go over here to text 2, since it's the second text down, and change the regular to, let's say, extra bold. Boom. Now that pops a little more. Of course, this isn't quite ideal for this image in the background, but it still looks pretty cool. And I just love that feature. So on to probably the second biggest thing that's been added. And you guys have been really kind. A lot of your comments have been super awesome. We love it. Use all the time. But some of you I've been talking back and forth with on suggestions and little glitches that you might run across. And probably the biggest, most asked for thing is, how do I lengthen this? How can I make it longer? You know, if I need to sit there for 1 minute, can it sit there for 1 minute and then animate out? Can I change those keyframes to extend it? And before, the only way to really do this was to go to the animation and go to where it's still, boom. And then you would cut it from there with B, razor tool, cut it, and then you could extend the portion that was still. And that was like the only real way to extend it. And then if you need it to be really long, then you'd kind of have to clip the still portion and copy that a bunch of times. So now what I've been able to do, which is just the awesomest thing, I don't know if I've seen this in any title pack. I'm going to go on record and say I don't know if I've seen this in any title pack, from Premiere to After Effects, definitely Davinci Resolve. I don't know if I've seen this before. Maybe you have, but I have not. Now if you have a really long clip like this here, let's stretch this out to a little over a minute. And of course, this only plays for about 4 or 5 seconds, which I've actually made them by default shorter. But if you drag it out, now for however long you drag it out for, it'll stay there, and then at the end, it'll animate out. Ta-da! Thank you. It's not me. It's you. I'm motivated by the subs. So, if you pull it back and pull it down here, now it's animated out here. I mean, that's just, you guys can't imagine the moment I figured this out on complete accident, doing some test runs, and then I stretched it out, and it, like, did that. I was like, what? My mind literally imploded. It didn't explode. It imploded on itself, and I had to grow a whole new head. That's what happened. That's why I haven't uploaded in a week and a half. I've been building a new head because I imploded mine with this craziness here. So they all start off in between 3 to 4 seconds, but you can stretch them out to be as long as you please, which is just incredible. Okay, now for last but not least, the greatest feature of all features. Some of you might use this, some of you will probably never use it, but the ones that do use it are gonna love it. Now, if you click, if you have the title selected and you go just right over to the Fusion page, what happens is you'll see something a little different. This used to look, the macro that would have been here looks a little different than what is here. Now, this thing that is here holding the animation, you can right click it and hit ungroup, and now you have the entire node workflow of that preset, and you can go in here and mess with all the splines and animations. You can delete all the animations, start from freaking scratch, and make your own animations up with the same design elements, mess with the design elements, do anything you want. It's just awesome. I just wanted to give you guys that ability. If you've watched my how to make modern animated titles in Davinci Resolve, that will give you a little insight on how to work with this screen. If you've never really worked with Fusion, it's a lot simpler than it looks. I know it looks complicated, but one thing I've also made sure to do is label all the nodes, just so when you guys jump in here, it's like, oh, okay, we have the keyframe stretcher here. That's what lets it, elongate out. And we have its properties over here in the tool section, typically. There we go. And we have the effects right here. We could ungroup this and do whatever we want with it. And also, this and this. And we got square, small square, we got big squares. We got square colors, we got square masks, we got merges, we got text, we have it all. Now, here's a warning. Here is a warning. Let me warn you. I'm going to go ahead and delete this, and we're going to start over. So if I drag in one of these, any of these, let's just pick a new one just to prove that you can do it with all of them. And then I jump over to the Fusion page. Let me show you something here. If I expand this group, boom, expanded. Boom, roasted. And then I come back. I have the controls on the right. All the controls are still on the right. Because the way this functions is the group has controls to what's inside the group. But if I ungroup, mind you, ungroup, now they're ungrouped. We're out in the wild. And I go back to the Edit tab. Now I have no controls. Are you with me here? So remember that. The group is what has the controls assigned to it. The group holds the controls. The group is the king of the castle. it commands everything else underneath it. So if you get rid of the group, you get rid of the controls. Now you still have, even more controls though now, here in the Fusion tab, because you have all the controls. But if you're sticking with me, I'm just saying in certain situations, you may not want to ungroup. You may just want to expand the group and try to work from there. Because once you ungroup, then you're on your own. Then I can't help you from there. I mean, you can write me an email at themodernfilmmaker.com or write a comment in the YouTube and I will definitely reply. But I can't get those controls back for you unless, of course, you simply delete that and then just reload it in and, you know, Bob's your uncle. Controls are back. Everybody's happy. Lunch is being made. You know, it's that simple. So one last thing I'll show you. Just a simple thing about the timing. Let's say you didn't want it to animate out, because there are rare occasions where you're like, I need it to animate in and I just want it to cut. I just need it to cut. I don't need all this animate out business. Animate in, stay there, and then leave. But don't animate out, just leave. So in that situation, new compound clip. And you could say, you know, Technica double swipe. You like these names? I named them myself. Boom. Now, we have the animation, but we can go and we can cut, press B, cut here, and now the animation out is over here. It's doing its own thing. We can delete that now. Now, it's just going to cut out. So in the occasion that you need to cut it or something like that, just make it a compound clip. Also one last thing. I know I keep saying that, but seriously. In the Effects tab, Open Effects panel, you can add any of these effects over to a compound clip. Now, if it's not a compound clip, and you add an effect, it's not going to give you any controls to that effect. That's not the way the situation works. Don't work that way. It'll add the effect, but it'll give you no controls really. So what you got to do is compound clip. Boom. Now that it's a compound clip, you can drag in effects. And now if you go to Open Effects, you'll have all the effects right there to the right, and bada bing, bada boom. Okay, one last thing, seriously. For some reason, if Davinci Resolve does not have the font that it's looking for, it doesn't just go to another font. It goes to no font, which results in the text not showing up. So in that case, if you don't have Open Sans or for some reason don't have access to it, then just go in here and change the font and it'll show up as whatever new font that you actually have. But that's something that you'll probably notice. If you don't see a font for some reason, or if you don't see a text, if you drag in an animation and like one of the words isn't there, that's most likely the problem. So all you have to do is just duck over there and take a look, and where it says font, it'll just be blank. It won't have anything in there. It'll just be blank, kind of waiting for you to say, what do I do? You know, tell me what to do, dog. And then it'll go ahead and do it. So for all of you that already had the title pack, there's been an email sent out to everybody that's already purchased with a file to download and update to 1.5, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know what you think about the changes, how it works compared to the old one, what you like about it, what you don't like about it. And for all of you that don't have it yet, go over to themodernfilmmaker.com and grab the title pack. It's so much fun. You can learn from it, especially now that you can dive into the Fusion nodes and really see where everything goes. There's really so much value here. It's ridiculous. And if you guys like this video, if you guys like title packs, if you like Davinci Resolve, give this video a like and make sure to subscribe if you like more videos like this. And leave a comment down below if you have any comments, questions, or concerns. And as always, guys, I'm Marcel, and this has been The Modern Filmmaker, and I will see y'all next time. Peace!